see the button.
Now
There it
we are.
is.
Now we're live. Game on. Here we go. Hi,
Game
Monifa.
on.
Welcome back. Fancy meeting you.
Hey, Susie. It's always fun to meet you in these random spots.
We are back for episode 13 of Verve and Vision Sovereign Spirits Mastering Midlife. All we have to do is master our tech.
We'll just skip
Ain't no
that part.
thing. It's great to be back here with you, my dear. We're going to take a look at the energies of the season. Happy new moon.
Yes. Happy new moon in Pisces. Yay. We are in new moon in Pisces. So if you've got the feels, if you feel like it's a little intense, well, there's reasons for that. So this is the new moon. We usually are kind of doing the next one because the lives are coming basically the month before this chances that we're talking about. But this is like literally the day of the new moon,
It's
at
all
least on the
happening.
Pacific side of the US. Yeah. So so it's kind of I kind of have to talk a little bit about that just because we're feeling it now. That's the biggest fun about doing, astrology. Like if you don't know what's going on, then how you not know you're not just crazy? I don't know how other people do it. I do it through astrology. So yeah, so we have new moon in Pisces going on. It's feeling like a little intense around what we're supposed to be doing consistently. And so because we built a lot of practice around our structure and how we are getting things done, like planning, organization, and all that stuff last year, you might be trying to keep kind of going back to that as a way to gain our footing. But Saturn is in Pisces now, folks. That happened around the end of last year. And so that kind of exactingness feeling of like it needs to be a certain way is now a spiritual thing. Like your spiritual life needs to be a certain way to feel like you have footing. So I felt like that was important to bring up and to know about what you may be like. I think it's confusing, right? Because we're like, get your life together last year. And now we're like, no, get your spirituality together.
I feel so much
Let's
better already. I feel
push
so
that out.
validated and seen. I thank you. Like everything else is happening around me. I'm like, but first, yoga.
Yeah. And it's totally valid because honestly, I don't know how people are like maintaining social strictures without having that going back to being able to get back to a clear space and feeling settled in our bodies. It is vital for my processing for sure. I think always, but especially right now. So that gift of equality, that's what is available in this new moon energy. Like get into what it means about how we are showing up in our strength and what is strength. Again, old measures used to be mostly physical and strong, meaning physically strong, and masculine traits that are like masculine traits that are strong. And now it's like no, like the things that are also ethereal and those things that may not always look like a material result, right? Not always the thing that you can put on the shelf. It's sometimes going to be now, how are your emotions doing? How is that going? How are you connecting to those things that are bigger than you and the all that is, right? So is that even happening? Are you making time for that? Is going to be what keeps coming back up, because otherwise, I'm guessing you feel a little nutty right now. I'm just guessing. It could be happening.
It's good to have friends in the nutty feelings. Feeling all the feelings right now.
Yeah. It's not just you, folks. It's not just you. That's what I love about this. So for March now, what's coming up? What are we what can we prepare for so we feel less crazy? And the next our full moon is on the March 13th, and that is in Virgo. Ba, 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 ba. So in Virgo, we have the gate 6 or gene key 6, which is our, well, in human or quantum human design, that is impact, which is interesting. And then we have in our gate 6, let me get to the right place. Here we go. Is shadow of conflict and the gift of diplomacy. And the city, which is Siddhi, is peace. Peace. So, what's really cool is that peace is an element to this current new moon energy in Gene Keys. So, it's the matter of being able to find peace within your emotions when you're relating to other people. And this is about not projecting your emotions to other people. So it's another version of peace. It's like if we're overly processing and it becomes somebody else's problem, then that's when we've kind of overdone it. We've overset the bounds. That's what that projection idea comes from in psychology, is that we're making our emotions how we're relating to other people, like what we think they're thinking, right? So that makes a lot of confusion, which is why a lot of people know what projection is and they can tell when you're doing it. So in order to be impactful in this idea of what that means for the quantum human design, what it's saying is that you have to be clear as to like what is really you, what's really going on with you, and then how are we how are we bringing ourselves back to awareness around our emotional projections. So if they tend to be unconscious, right? You're not always, not hopefully, we're not doing that on purpose usually, that we're putting our emotions on somebody else's experience. But if we don't know that it can happen and we have no stop guards, so we have no practices, we have no spiritual practices that come back to greater awareness and clarity, then it can cause problems. And we try to control how we feel by other people's feelings. Okay, so we're trying to get other people to do what we want them to do so that we can feel better, right? This is why somebody who can be really, I mean, I thought of myself as really, really, I think of myself still as really, really nice, right? Really considerate, very recognizing like how other people are living and going through things. But out of my own kind of self-preservation of controlling my own emotions, because I didn't want to, trouble anybody with my emotions. So it can go either way. That's the kind of repressive side. We can create this over attentiveness, people pleasing kind of thing, right? And what happens there is that you're basically saying that if you don't feel okay, then I can't be okay. So you need to get your shit together, right? Like, but in a nicer way. Like, can I fix it for you? Can I fix it for you? I'm just not okay that you're not okay, right? And we've seen how this can like really make people that aren't like are having their own separate emotion and need to in order to process and be able to live their life, like how it upsets their balance. So we've heard this around depression and how people that are depressed feel like they have to pretend like they're happy because it makes people uncomfortable that they're sad. So that kind of thing, it can get out of control. It can get out of control. Okay. The other side of this is reactive, which means is that we are just acting emotionally with no sense of like how it's impacting other people. So we're just living out our emotions and we don't really regulate them at all. Right. And so what happens is that it just creates a lot of disorder because now you're basically making other people deal with your emotions, whether they're having something going on or not. And that's the other part. Like, so there is a balance. It's nothing necessarily completely wrong with either side. It's how are we relating to it, right? The shadow is not about what we're doing wrong. It's about how it's skewing our perception for a better experience to evolve, right? So the power here is being able to be clear, getting into awareness, like not letting your energy go out or other people's energy come in without awareness. And so what's beautiful about this is that he talks about yin yang. Richard Rudd, who's the developer of Gene Keys, talks about yin yang and how this is kind of that sense. If you've ever heard of like Tai Chi or like Qigong, like those practices of like recognizing where the energy is and like flowing with it. I forget which one it is specifically, but basically there's one that you're basically just returning the energy that's been spent. So like if you are even in a fight, like their force that you send to them, you just redirect it right back to their field without, and this is like kind of interesting because I hadn't heard this before about martial arts, but this is saying without adding anything to it, right? Without adding, or, and I think kind of you can say subtracting, right? Um, because that's what creates the imbalance. It's like not recognizing that the energy is a movement that is happening, is affecting you, and that the whatever you do next is about like how much are you trying to control the emotional environment so that you feel better, right? So like if you're adding to it, you're basically enforcing control. And if you're like trying to wean back, then you're trying to like get out of their field of control, of their emotional control, right? So like isn't that fun? Like how everything, little puzzle pieces, right? So
Fascinating,
that's just
right?
coming up in full moon. So how are we
Little
gonna let
piece.
go of controlling other people's for our emotional betterment? How are we doing that? Huh? Huh? How are you?
How are we gonna find some peace? Some peace with the process. I made some notes on my flower essences like I do. Oh, looks like it was 2 characters too long.
Yay.
It mostly fit into into one comment. Um, yes. So I'm feeling like, the first one that really spoke to me is chicory. We call it the motherliness flower. When you give love with strings attached. And so that feels really relevant for not manipulating other people's actions by the way that you give love to them or interact
Mm,
with them, but just to be, right? No strings attached, freely giving,
yeah,
giving
I
that
like
love.
that.
Agrimony is a terrific flower
Beautiful.
essence for easing that, really for restoring authenticity in your emotions, for really being genuine in what you're reflecting. And so I see that as a wonderful way to ease the people pleasing, because again, like chicory, you're taking that manipulation out of things and just being aligned and where you are, right? Like you're saying, like not engaging in, not taking on or adding to the energy, but reflecting it back. I think agrimony helps
Mhm.
us find our center and authentic expression without adding to it, adding to the fire. And cherry plum is a great one. I think of cherry plum and compulsive, right? That's how I remember cherry plum as a flower essence. So easing that volatility in our reactions, because it does feel hyper emotional. It feels like everything is pushing buttons and demanding reactions right now. And so if we can, again, take that charge out of it, then I think it's a lot easier to just be witness to it rather than feeling like we have to wade in, jump into fray, roll up my sleeves.
Yeah. Yes, and I feel like there is some pressure there, like because of just the heightened emotions of so many people. Like I've been hearing a lot of like kind of derision for people that aren't weighing in as strongly on certain topics, and it's interesting because I think for the majority of our lives, we were criticized for speaking, like in general, as feminine entities, right? Like we, in general, just like say less. And then now
Already
it's
thinking
like we're
about our
more
book.
criticized if we're not speaking, and I think we get to choose. This is something that I kind of came in hot with when I had my own revelations about voice, and what set up my practice to be the way it is now, which is that it's first for you. Like it's about you getting into balance around your emotions. That's why, like kind of impact is the thing for Karen Curry Parker, because it's basically how are you able to resource your own resources, power your ability to emotionally flow. Um, and then and then he's just saying in a different way, how are we balancing these things out? What does balance look like when we're in these cooperative experiences? And I think a lot of times we have to recognize that some people are the frontliners, like on certain things. I keep coming back to this because I feel like a lot of us people pleasers, we like to um, we like to fix all the things, but the reality is that there's some people that are just better at certain things, and I think it's okay to let people that have those strengths to be the leaders, and to not feel bad because you don't have that strength, because you have your own things to do, and so we get to focus and prioritize what we need to be up to a lot more when we're just okay with that, right? Or like, you don't have to be in everybody's sandbox. That's not necessary. Like, it doesn't
Right.
actually work that way. We might want everybody to care about what we're doing and why it's so important, but the truth is, not everybody knows. No, not everybody understands. Not everybody cares. And so, if you know that's your strength, then that's why you get to speak up. Like, that is why you have something to say about it, because it's a strength for you. You can see it. You follow the patterns. You can tell that it needs to be spoken to at this instance, right? So, like, don't poo-poo on people who don't have those strengths. They have other strengths, and they're equally valuable. That's what I love again about astrology, is that it reminds us we all have our little power. We have our little genius, our points of genius. Let's just let each other live in our genius, and then we can like calm down a little bit. A little bit, which is going to be hard. Like you said, it's volatile, right? This is a volatile environment. And there's things worthy to be upset over. Like, it's not what I'm saying at all. And then it's just a matter of, like, again, how are you living in your genius in accordance to whatever you feel needs to be addressed? So let's move on to our new moon energies for March. So the seven, oh wait, yeah. So this is a hard one because we have the Pacific timing is a little different than the Eastern timing here for the US. This is why I always kind of recommend having an astrologer that you like that's closest to you. Because if you're listening to somebody in Europe or something, it's going to be different, a little bit off, especially if you're talking about 64 keys. So in the Pacific, it is 17, the key 17, and then in the East Coast, it'll be 21. And they're like this much apart, but that's how much of a difference it makes when you have more numbers. So that'll be on March 29th, new moon in Aries. And this is the one that is called peace. So this is actually peace in the quantum human design system. And in the gene keys, it is the shadow of control, the gift of authority, and the city of valor. Am I saying that right? I might have that wrong. That might be the other one. Yeah. So that was 21. I just said that was 21. 17. We'll go back to 17. 17 is the shadow of opinion, the gift of farsightedness, and the city of omniscience. So this is interesting, right? Because I was like, what was our book, Quillian? What's our next book? Our next book is The Theory of Everything. And I'm like, that was a good choice that I made randomly, skimming on some words. Yeah, so like I think that is really interesting that we have that as our new moon of March, because what's asking us for is to have a sense of how we're interacting with the unity, worldview is a way to say that. So how do we have a worldview? If we don't, maybe find one. Like, just, you don't have to keep it. That's the other thing. Like, you can change it if you want to, but you probably should have one. for an operating basis as things are shifting, right? Because there's so much change going on. This is the best time ever to have an impact on how we are functioning. And so if you have a worldview, you have more chance to have an impact in how the world will continue to function from now on. So when you get clear on that, then you're helping all of us. You're helping, we all get more out of that, right? Um, so I think the things to pay attention to here is that the idea that we are only, again, physical. This idea that we are getting our impetus for movement out of physicality. Now, I think that's really important to know about the Western kind of placement here is that we have kind of this slingshot energy that happens to be right across what we're up to, like what we're going to be known for over the long term as human beings. So this is on the universal level of the earth in a lot of ways. So we could call it sector specific by timing, but the reality is that we still have this energy that wants to be changed, and that is pointing directly to Uranus. So for those who know, Uranus is like the change, like sudden change agent, and Uranus is in Taurus. Taurus is the long-standing, you know, what we are, the structures we have built for the all things, right? Like government, economics, like not just like partial structures, like big junk that literally is what supports everything. So as we have, remember, this is mostly about energy and perspective. So our perspective to these things are massively changing as we move into the Aquarian age. We are officially in it. And so we're going to get this kind of constant, what are you doing about that? What are you doing about that? And then we have new moon in Aries. Aries is, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Like, what is your action? What are you doing? What are you up to? So we're going to feel, again, this need to physically do the thing, right? And yet, again, we're having this, again, interaction with the opposition here is balance. Is coming back to peace is what, again, Karen Curry Parker is speaking to. Like, how do we find balance within ourselves and a sense of what brings us peace? Are we supporting ourselves in that? So that was, peace was actually 21. The 17 is self-regulation. So you see, like, what is up here? This is about like being able, again, to be able to tell what you need so that you are like in right action with others around you. So in the shadow of opinion, it's basically you just have this thought that just because of past knowledge, you're right on a certain thing, right? So you're just choosing different thoughts so that you can feel right about a thing. Farsightedness includes the aspect of the third eye, right? And so that's basically being able to see beyond evidential material things and beyond previous experience and beyond assumed potential, like future potential and possibility, right? So it's that the third eye experience is basically saying, can we just see beyond ourselves, which is weird, right? Because it's Aries, but but the reality is, it's like if we're only acting from our own viewpoint, then without the worldview, then we might just be shooting in the dark. We're kind of wasting energy in a lot of ways, in my opinion, because there's so much power for change here. And if it's more encompassing into the whole, if it's more far-sighted, then you're going to, again, be much more effective in the change that needs to happen. So that's kind of my take on the new moon in March. What you think about that, Sis? I just shortened your name.
Yes, that's okay. I'm down for Suze. It feels like a lot going on. It's so funny. Oh, I have to hit send on the comments. I've been typing away my little flower essences. Still too long. Little carryover comment there. It's so Aries. It's so Aries, right? Because Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. It's all about I and our place in the world. And I feel like, we're on this evolutionary cycle. So we're coming back to what is I and self in this world with the awareness that we've all brought from the lessons that we've had to this point, right? We are evolving on this cycle. So, yes. How to balance the feels and the expressions. I think wild oat is a beautiful flower essence. When people are changing career path or wondering, what's your passion, your purpose, what are you called to do? Wild oat is a beautiful flower essence to align you with that. What are you here to do? So as long as we've got the attention on I think it's a great time for a wild oat to help to bring clarity there. And, oat supports physical and energetic balance. Is that what I meant to say? I'm going to come back to that. Vervain helps to balance your passion. So people who are really caught up in the causes, and there's a lot of that right now. So again, it kind of goes for the whole month, I think. It helps to kind of catch your breath and hear what other people are saying, understand there are multiple sides to what's going on. Doesn't mean you have to agree with them, but just helping to create space for the fact that there are other perspectives. So vervain helps to calm that fervor that we can really get riled up into. And then heather is great for helping us to see beyond our self-interest. So if you're really caught up in that Aries situation and just feeling all about me and where's my place in the world and how it affects me, and we need to kind of, again, step back and get perspective, heather is a great way to create some space and make it less about you, because we are all connected. We are all in this ride together. So heather is a great one to help kind of find our place again in that perspective. Oak. That's what I meant to say. So not oak. The second flower essence is oak. Oak is a flower essence that's perfect for when we push ourselves too hard and we're not honoring our energetic levels, our physical and energetic capacity, right? So when you over striving and you're pushing yourself to your limits, oak is a great flower for helping us come back into balance. And so that's why I felt like in terms of that finding physical and energetic balance in all that we feel called to do, maybe called to speak up about, oak is a great way to help to kind of balance ourselves so we're not overextended, completely depleted, and unable to keep on keeping on. Because we got to take care of ourselves, sisters. We got to find ways to fill our own cup, especially when there's lots of little leaks starting to spring up. That's how I feel. Does that kind of resonate for you too, right? Like lots of leaks in the cup at the moment.
They're
Lots of
like
drains.
cracks coming out of nowhere. And yeah, and I think that is the trick. It's like how much are we allowing that to influence how we are positioning ourselves to what we're creating. And I think it's very easy to get distracted right now. I even was talking, to my clients last year about this. Like you think it's, you have a lot to do and it's not hard to concentrate now. Like what's coming is going to be a whole new level of a lot. It's going to be a lot, right? Like it's a lot in like 5 dimensions, right? Like it's a lot. And I feel like we've been saying that for a while as far as astrologers and
right. And
we've
been preparing for it. We've been learning these lessons. It doesn't make that adaptation to a lot necessarily easier. Maybe I guess I feel reassured, like, okay, we've been in training for this. Like I'm overwhelmed. I'm in the thick of it. I need my flowers. I'm going to go mix them up after we're done today.
Get those on hand.
Right. We've been bulking up to prepare for this, right? We've been accumulating these lessons.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing is maybe nice to remember is that whether you have known the astrology is happening or not, you've already been living these experiences and having this knowledge come through. So it's really recognizing what you have learned that really will give you that same sense. Oh yeah, I have been learning this. I didn't realize that like we were all learning this, right? Maybe, but I have been learning this and that you can trust that. you are where you need to be. So that I think is the fun part for this time too, because it's going to keep feeling like you're not, especially for February. Luckily, February is almost like February is that new acclamation, at least in the Chinese astrology, to what the year is, and so everything is a little disjointed, and the new asks feel like they don't make sense, right? Um, so they kind of have that, but we have that times like 10,000 and upwards of like 70,000 year cycles, right? So like this is not the only cycle that's happening on. It's not just the yearly cycle. Um, so it's intense. It is intense. It's intense, probably a little bit more than like 2 generations back intense looked like, even though like wars happening and stuff like that. Those were things that humanity had done before. We'd been at war before. It was just like, more technology at war. So it's not the same, and it never is. And I think that's one of the things that we might bring to our children around this, is that their challenges are not our challenges. So like acting like it's not a challenge because it doesn't look like your challenge, it's like not useful. So like it is challenging. It's challenging to be a young adult that has lived the majority of their growth experience in COVID and in economic and governmental disarray, and with no sense of like true north, literally. Like in the functioning of the angles of the planet, it's different. It's
Right.
different. So we get to love each other and the differences of how we're seeing and perceiving. Um, it's a new challenge, a new heightened challenge, because people are being weird, right? Like people are being weird. So we get it. We get it. And that's why we're being asked to up level Saturn and Pisces, our spirituality. We're being asked to like come hither with a whole new level of spirituality, not just like the go to the building level. It has to be a personal experience that you can come back to. So yeah, I think that's what's up, what we're talking about.
And I think that brings me right back to where you started the conversation, which is that idea that we can engage with the energy if it's directed enough. We can receive it and reflect it back. We don't have to subscribe to it. We don't have to take on that energy or deplete ourselves in sending it back. We can just reflect it back. So I think that's really helpful to kind of bring it full circle as we're riding through all of these influences and getting context, which is so helpful. We can be like, and I'm going to take care of myself, make sure my spiritual house is in order so that my cup is full and I don't have to take it on, deplete myself. I don't have to be porous to these energies that are swirling right now.
Yeah, I think it's like the biggest misconception, because I would say over the last at least 8 years, there's been this conception that if you fight louder or harder, that's the way to make progress. If you naysay louder and harder, then that's the way you shut people up or get people on the right boat. And it so doesn't work that way.
Right.
It does
How's
not
that
work
been
that
working so
way.
far? How is that
Like
working for
telling
us?
somebody that they're just the wrong way to be human, or the wrong way to think, or the wrong way, like you're never going to get where you're trying to go with that. So it's really about self-regulation and being able to reflect, being clear enough to be that mirror, because that's where people start looking at like, well, what did I just say? That is weird. Why would I say that out loud in public? Like that's where they get that reflected energy, where they're just like, whoa, maybe I am going a little far, right? So yeah. So, and then we have Likeable Badass, which is a whole new level
So in time and on
The
time. I love how it
complexity,
all
the
came together.
complexity.
So we started our book the beginning of the year. We had a book club session at the very beginning of February. On the 6th, we have one more book club session, a deep dive coming up this coming Thursday. That's our new format. So Thursday, March 6th, the week from today, we'll be back to really dig into all of the lessons and insights that Allison Fragale shared in Likeable Badass. I'm so grateful. So, this book came to my attention when I heard an interview with her. The book was just released this last year. And as a professor and a researcher, she really validates what she's talking about when she breaks down how women can get what they want because we deserve it by being likable badasses, by combining assertiveness along with power and those components of assertiveness that are warmth as well as strength. And so I had so much fun going through this book. We're having a great time putting together everything we're going to dig into next week. Monifa, how do you feel about the correlations, right? We've really been kind of savoring the timing of this book. It feels like the perfect headspace to be in as we need to get centered and find our resolve and not be susceptible to these winds that are blustering around us. What stands out for you in terms of how this is aligning right now?
For me, it's it is that new moon energy. 37, like I said, is the shadow of weakness. It's the perception of a masculine gaze on a feminine energy, right? And like that's the whole problem. Like she talks about in Likeable Badass. It's like that's the whole problem is that because of that gaze, we have tried to contrive our version of masculinity in fields where status is needed and power is needed in order to progress in our careers, in order to be respected in the work that we're doing, um, and just in general. So it's created kind of this monster effect of the reflections back we've been getting around like who we are, and it starts with that conversation of warmth and cold and oh, what is it? It's an A word. Where basically authority, right? Authority. And like how are we being able to be seen as impactful in a space, and that space essentially what status is. So it is all those things because we just talked about like literally the word is impact for March. Literally, the word for like right now is equality, right? This new moon. So it's this understanding that equality is beyond gender, that is really about this interplay of yin yang. How much are we balancing our warmth with our assertiveness? That's the A word. Our warmth with our assertiveness. um, because it's the game. That's the game, right? And are we allowing again other people's perceptions of who we are and our emotionality, like so I feel like that's the game moving forward as well. And then how are we allowing that to affect how we are speaking to our worldview is what's going to show up in March, right? So how it's just like a lot of correlation happening. I feel like on some of these things I could like just if I had the time, I would just sit down and do like a little seminar on like these correlating aspects because it's so real. It's so what's happening. And it's that conversation of can we recognize that there's a power dynamic without making it evil um, or subversive, right? By having those things mean that we are somehow less of a person of integrity because we're recognizing them and hopefully adequately working with them, right? But she does talk about in the book as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really like her exploration. And as a fellow people pleaser. Maybe many of us sovereign spirits can relate to that at some point in our lives, if not right now where we are. Picking up a book called Likeable Badass is like, so do I have to be likable in order to be a badass? Do I have to be warm in order to have the power that I deserve in different situations? And so if that is kind of breeding some curiosity for you, if you haven't started the book yet to kind of see where her approach lands on this, I think it's really helpful to put it in a perspective, right? There's manipulation and changing the way people think about you in order to get ahead. And yes, that is what she's speaking to, but it's not presenting a false side of yourself. It's recognizing how we come off, because I think as women trying to take our places in different professional situations or building business or just family dynamics, we recognize that we need to exert control in different aspects. And sometimes we feel like in order to be powerful, we can't be warm, because warmth is undermining our place. And so I love her invitation to take a look at the capacity of warmth and the balance, because it really does impact the way people perceive us if they feel that you are not warm because you've been sequestering that part of yourself. And I think it's really empowering. Forgive me to keep using the same words, but they just keep rolling around in my head. I think it's really empowering to see that we can bring different aspects of ourselves. And it's not a book coaching you on, be like this inauthentic part of yourself. It's looking at ways to do what feels aligned for you. It's not a checklist. It's kind of a presentation of ideas and topics, and you can explore these and integrate it and see how it changes your relationships at work and personally, which I think is really exciting.
Absolutely. Like that awareness level is what is being requested here. Is can we tell that we are trying to be cold as a method of asserting our power, right? And so and some of us just don't realize we've taken on these characteristics as a survival function within the workplace. So it's just bringing that awareness to it and then saying, is this how you want to do it? Or do you want to do it a different way? And what would that way look like for you, right? Because all of us have different strengths, and all of us have different ways of being that are more suited to some of the suggestions that she makes than others. So she's saying, pick the ones that work for you and not necessarily be like this Barbie doll over here, right?
Because we are Barbie dolls, girlfriends. That is not us. That is not the goal. That's a different show you're looking for.
Different show. Yes, we like Mob. No, we are not Barbie.
More like weird Barbie.
Yeah, we're probably, atypical Barbie.
So I'll show the banner again. Get more information over on buymeacoffee.com/verve.vision. You'll have the link there to join us on Zoom next week when we deep dive into these concepts. I love how Allison offers, again, she's a good teacher. We get some assignments, but also these, what does she call it? Plays to practice. And she's got it on the spicy scale. So there's a little less spicy to more spicy, maybe a little more challenging, or getting your heat up as you contemplate trying these exercises. But I love all of the ways in which you can kind of feel into it, what feels like something that's natural for you. And there's always, that challenge that comes with the growing edge, right? If it isn't something you've done before, it's not going to feel completely natural and totally inviting. And what if you could conquer this? What if you could, just through the way you respond to emails or your out of office reply email response for you, what if you can be establishing your presence, your accountability, your warmth, your power in relationships? Like, what if all of that speaks for you so you don't have to present it every time you're in a conversation or every time you're meeting someone? So I love how she makes it really doable and not overwhelming if you kind of take it along. I honestly, I feel like I want to get the book for my niece. I feel like I want to recommend it to everybody. I feel like the younger the better in terms of when we get to be exposed to these ideas. Wish I was in her
Yeah.
college
You know
class.
what I really noticed is that a lot of the people that I perceive as status worthy, at least in the, you know, the, the stratus of the our current culture, have been doing these things, and they do it as a matter of course. And so it's kind of interesting to me that it's like, did they learn that somewhere, or is that just, like, how did they know to be consistent in these ways, right? Um, and it's, at least we found out, right? We have a book that told us, but I kind of wish I had learned this stuff earlier, right? It would have been nice. I just, whatever. Um, but honestly, I don't know if I would have taken the lesson earlier, because I'm very much the person that she talks about, I think in the second chapter, where or second or third chapter, where she was talking about how she didn't want to be the person that had to talk herself up. She talks about it as like telling our story, which I think anybody who's done any kind of business or self promotion or event promotion has had to do on some level, and how uncomfortable we are with it. At minimum, you've had to do it for a job application through writing your resume or CV. So in that like struggle bus of like putting down what you do and why you're so awesome at it without feeling like you're totally, what they call it, I forgot, imposter syndrome. Like if you're not being some kind
Yes.
of level of imposter. Like she talks about all of that. She talks about also, I really give her so many props for talking about the differences in how we perceive status amongst things like gender and race, right? Like, so that we're not acting like we're all coming from the same lens, in order to pick kind of what's going to work for us. Because I think that would have been really hard for me to digest if it didn't have that understanding. Because
Mm-hmm.
there are some of these things where you're just like, yeah, I can't. That's not how it works for us, right? Like it starts to become
Right.
that
Right.
idea. But I think that's what's so cool that I picked, like kind of the ones I wanted to mention, because if you come to the workshop, you're gonna get to pick the ones that you want to do. And I think it's kind of hard to pick because you're kind of like, well, that's really good. I'm not ready for that yet. But that's why she has the different heat levels. She's genius with that. So like a lot of mine are like, there's 1 to 3, and I have like 2. One, I've done that one too. I might need to try that, right? So my first one I wanted to talk about, that I really liked, was the one that, you choose somebody that you think of as a mentor that has made a difference to you, but you may not have told them, or they may not even know. They might be mentoring you over, Instagram or something. So like you can say how you use their advice and send them a little note. So that is actually my favorite one, because I think a lot of us have women mentors we haven't told that we admire them yet, right? And how many women do you know have heard that enough? Not
Right.
me. So
Mm-hmm.
like,
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's a really good one to start with. Right? Um, so do you have any words that you want to pick up? Like,
I teased at the beginning. I said, Monifa, what assignments are you going to do next week so we can talk about it during our meeting? She said, no. So we invite you to come at whatever energy level you're bringing to the conversation, and wherever you are in processing the book. One of the ones, and it felt challenging for me, it'd be interesting to see if I follow through with it, is collecting no's. And, in terms of like getting into business and sales, I've heard of, and maybe many people have heard of the book Go for No. But the collecting no's, I love this invitation to get 10 no's with her intention being, you will be surprised at how many fewer times you get no than you are anticipating. And really inviting you to kind of open up your potential in terms of getting surprised by some yeses. Ask for the things that you want. Be okay with the no. It's just going to be one more check mark on your list, but you might just get what you want that you weren't assertive enough to ask for before you've been challenged by this exercise. So I find that interesting. Tune in next week to see if I put my money where my mouth is and follow through with
Let's
it.
see how it goes.
And I also love
Yeah.
looking back from the future self to kind of help you navigate
Oh,
tough decisions in choices, like tough decisions in situations as we are living them. I think that's really interesting. So I'm excited to dig into that too.
cool, cool. Yeah, yeah. And I think the no thing for me has always been like, oh my God, I get enough no's, right? I get, and that's because I pushed myself, right, to do this already. So maybe I'm just like, well, maybe I'm at my limit right now in this level of capacity for my experience, but hit me back in like 2 weeks and I might be ready to up level, right? So that's kind of part of it. But I think it's a really great press. It's something similar that came up around the book Unbound that we did last year,
Yes.
of like asking for more, and actually directly to men was actually from Unbound. So yeah, so I have actually given this as an assignment for clients to ask for more things, more support, from more people from different kinds of kind of capacities, especially around children. I don't like, yeah, are parents just raising children out by themselves out there in like 2025? Like it's 2025. Like it's hard out in these streets. Like get help. Like I couldn't do it. I know I'd be like, do you want my kid for the day or like a week? Like, how long do you have? I would be asking for help all over the place. It's too hard, y'all. It's too hard. At minimum, like get a pool of parents that you can pass your child off to, or but I think it's really functional to just find what they're interested in, what they're good at, and go throw them that direction. Like I was telling them that they could just decide to go and learn from somebody that does a a job that they might be interested in, and that they don't even have to like, they could just be like copying pages or whatever they're doing. They don't have to necessarily babysit them at a certain age. It's just getting them out and having other people inform them what they need to be up to, because they're not listening to you anymore at a certain age anyways, right? Like don't do that. Like don't do that to yourself. Like
Well,
stop.
and I
Get
love that
some help.
she shares that. She really invites you
Yeah.
to doing everything yourself isn't where strength comes from. Outsourcing, calling in help, putting yourself in your zone of genius, another great book from last year, when we dove into the big leap. Managing your resources is where strength lies, not being the mistress of everything that you do. You don't have to be. We don't have to be. There isn't enough of us to go around. So I love that. It's such a great conversational style. Now, I had Alexa read me the book because I have it on Kindle. So I didn't hear the audiobook version. I think it would be fun to hear it in her voice, because she does know that one of her natural gifts is humor. And there's definitely some humor that comes through even in Alexa's voice. So um,
Yeah.
I think it's wonderful way to take it in. It's not threatening or overly challenging, but it really does bring wonderful conversations together too, right? As we were talking
Yeah.
about finding mentors, what mentorship looks like, what it looks like to be an example to other women who are finding how to walk this balance, or choosing to literally mentor and being more strategic and thoughtful in how you're passing down lessons to the women who are coming along, so that they don't have to have the same challenges that we've navigated, right? We can give girls a hand up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, yeah. Yeah. And that's what she was talking about kind of in a culmination in the book as well. Of the more that we don't like one of her biggest complaints, probably, I'm sure, especially amongst women, is I don't have time for this, right? Like, I ain't got no time for that, right? So, yeah, but like she says, a lot of the stuff you're already doing is just without the awareness level that allows you to get the benefit of the interaction, right? And so that's what I love about it as well. Like one of them, my favorite parts is the out of office auto response. I'm already using autoresponders, right? Why not let it talk me up? And that's one of the strategies that she shares. So I think, again, there's going to be something here that you can kind of just go ahead and do. It's like, oh, yeah, there's that idea I had. Did some of them on accident. Like one of them was I was making a post about a book, and she was like, big up other people as a way of saying like what you're up to, right? And so was going to do a post about a book anyways. And I was like, oh, yeah, but then I can pick up Penelope because she recommended it. And that's why I have it. And oh, yeah, and I can pick up Stasha because I hope that one comes next. Oh, yeah. Like, so it was like one of my best posts as far as interaction has gone for a while. And it wasn't anything I wasn't going to do anyways. It was just better thought out because I had this information. So it's really interesting how a little bit goes a long way. I listen to it on audiobook. I do that because that's how I learn best. And anything I want from notes, you can usually find like Susie has brought some great notes in this one. She has like the whole what do they call it? Study guide thing. And so, and then it's really well broken down into those
Thanks,
nice little heat
Professor
ranges.
Fragale.
Yeah, she's brills. She's brills. So yeah, I think it's totally digestible. And I hope that you do join us next week so we can kind of see which ones we can accidentally do on purpose.
We've got our Buy Me a Coffee link in the comments, buymeacoffee.com/verve.vision. Learn more about our book club. We'll get a list in there too about what books are coming up next Thursday. We are talking Likeable Badass. It's going to be so juicy. And then the next book we are diving into is A Theory of Everything by Ken Wilber. So get your book club, get your book list ready, update that with A Theory of Everything. We're going to dive into that in March and April. End of March, beginning of April, even the first week of May. That's going to be our deep dive workshop. So we've got plenty of time to bring it all in.
That's going to be a good one.
Integrate.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome year. We have some amazing books and we have so much time to really sit with them and see what they grow in us. So I'm looking forward to it. And I will see y'all in Thursday.
See you next week. Thanks, y'all. Thanks, Monifa.
Ta-ta.